Another response video to dospook. I don't know what the hell that was. Anyway, yeah, so he made these two videos. This was actually the second video, but he's more polite in this video, so I'll play this first. There's no point in getting snarky until we have to. But he is being a bit of an asshole. But who would expect anything else? Oh, Remy posted a comment. Use the circles of life, as in the Lion King, for addition, needs, and desires. Try that and see if the argument retains its rhetorical force. Yeah, well, they could sing the song, actually. Our friend uses terms like cannibalism and addiction for rhetorical effect. Well, I don't think it's just rhetorical. The point is the words have a connotation, and that's what I'll get to. They sound negative. No, they are negative. Cannibalism is a bad thing if you actually are killing. I mean, obviously, I don't think it's wrong to eat the dead, but anyway, the argument is emotive, not logical. Well, again, it's logical in the sense that if you are consuming something of equal value to yourself, you're obviously going to have a hard time consuming something. I mean, you're going to have a hard time being productive. I mean, if you consume as much gasoline as you produce, or as much energy as you produce, or more, then you're not going to be called efficient. He wants you to feel the way he feels. Well, whatever, that's not true. I made this point to him a long time ago. To test this, try rephrasing his terms. Wherever he employs a term for the negative association, substitute a term with a positive association. Well, if you can find a positive way to say, harming something, causing more harm than good. I mean, if you can find a positive way to say, eating your own young, yeah, I don't think so. For example, for consumption, use reaping the bounty. Well, frankly, reaping the bounty doesn't sound very good to me, just because the bounty is often made by the slaves. For reproduction, fruitfulness, again, these are biblical terms that really don't sound too good. But again, cannibalism. So again, you've just broken the word cannibalism. It just doesn't mean anything if you're going to call it fruitfulness. I mean, it just, you've changed the meaning of the word. You've changed the concept of consumption. That is eating its own value. So anyway, here's the four words, right? Okay, so you got consumption, reproduction, cannibalism, and addiction. Basically, through this reconfiguration, this putting things into circles crap, he wants to just break down all these words and call it all interaction and animation. More importantly, he kind of stalls on the word addiction. And even if you wanted to just stop at that word alone, you could probably compile these three terms into that word addiction and just focus on that word addiction, because that's the whole game, really. It's playing a stupid game for no good reason. It's let's do tic-tac-toe a billion times and just keep hoping the result will come out differently. It's the old Einstein dummism, It's just there's no brain to doing the same thing over and over again expecting a different result. Life doesn't have a result. It has failure. it's perpetual and inevitable failure. That's just the nature of it. And you can so if we're going to use this word interaction, then, like I said, all these words have a different meaning, because the interaction is a possession. So, I mean, like a word like reproduction could be called consumption, just because what you're doing in reproducing is consuming more environment, consuming more space, consuming more matter. You are possessing it, so it could all be called taking possession of. And if you're taking possession through a mechanism of addiction, again, the connotation is there. But anyway, these words are basically telling a story. This is the condensing of the story. So if we were doing Goldilocks and the Three Bears, consumption would be Goldilocks going to the cabin. Reproduction might be the porridge. Cannibalism would be the bed, and addiction would be the bears saying, "And she's still there." So it's just telling the story in a concise manner. Now you want to tell the story even more contracted. You want to break the Three Bear story into some fewer words. And I just see that as totally, you're going to lose this story pretty quickly if you try to reduce it even further. And to use a word like interaction or animation, it completely is value neutral. It says nothing, so the story is gone. It's just like saying Goldilocks and the Three Bears and stopping there and saying that's the story. That's not going to tell you anything about the idea of too hot or too cold or just right. You've just annihilated all value. You've annihilated the story. So each one of these words does have a meaning and does have sort of an importance to the story that we do consume to reproduce. These two words are intimately connected in evolution, but that's evolution right there. That's the process. It is a reproducing DNA molecule. It's important to understand how reproduction is the actual mechanism, the function, the thing it produces is copies. That's what it does. You can't extract this concept and just call it consumption, because it's consumption in a specific manner, which, if unregulated, would consume all matter, theoretically. It's got to be understood in that context. Any other context destroys meaning. And the same goes for cannibalism. The idea is that sentients are consuming sentience. It's value for value. You're eating what you are producing, in theory. You're attempting to do this reproduction thing. You're eating reproductions to make your reproductions. There's this little point in this senseless consuming of your own kind to produce a kind that all could be called your. So it's like eating your daughter so you can have your son, and then eating your son so you can produce another daughter. It's a futile, silly, nonsensical, ludicrous, imbecilic, wasteful consumption. So wasteful is part of all of this. And addiction, again, is the mechanism that drives these things being accomplished. And they only happen. You only consume your son because you are compelled by addiction to produce a daughter. And then you are compelled by addiction to produce a son. And vice, and on and on and on and on forever and ever and ever, in a mindless competition to just acquire silly and eccentric distinction from each other. Irrelevant distinction in many ways. So to reduce all that to interaction and animation is, is preposterously silly. So I'll play a little bit of this just so you get the idea that this is just inane and obtuse nonsense. This is just word games.
A type of interaction, or is interaction a type of animation? Well, I'll suggest that action, just action itself, right, is a type of animation, right? And so interaction, because we're interacting with some background in a closed system with some environment, that this is a subset of animation. And the addiction, right, the impulse to move towards something is also a subset of animation. Right? So now we can take animation and interaction, or addiction and interaction, and put those as subsets of animation. Now the reason I would say animation is because the most primarily about our...
Yeah, well, look, in the first place, a lot of life isn't very animated. It's only animated in the fact that atoms move through it, in a sense. And through that transition of it extracts a tiny bit of energy, and there is metabolical changes within, almost on atomic level, on chemical levels, but no real animation in the bigger external world, and that's still considered a life form. But whatever, like I said, there's just no point in telling the Goldilocks story if you're going to take all the values out of the story. And that's all you're doing here, just extracting the meaning, the whole character of the story, for the purpose of destroying. Yeah, it's exactly that. You just don't want the story. You don't want to have to deal with the ethical and value issues, so you just annihilate them through a word game. And I just don't see any point in that. I don't see any reason why it should be respected as anything but what it is, a stupid, silly, idiotic, deconstruction of all. This is such an insult to language. Just why not abolish all words that have a value connotation? If this is your philosophical hope, is that you can destroy all value judgment as a reality by just destroying all the words that have value connotation. I mean, it's just so obviously has the purpose, a purpose contrived for that reason. So anyway, his second video, he gets pretty snarky later in it, but I'll use Piero's tool. So this is Piero's video timecode tool. So I have extracted the relevant crap.
What baby gets thrown out with the bathwater? Ration gets thrown out with the bathwater. Of course, then Gary believes that logic exists in the world and math exists in the world instead of being like partially a human practice, a human practice that describes the world. He thinks that truth exists out in the world, the shape of a pine cone.
Yeah, so does that make any sense to you? He uses a word like describes the world. He concedes that that's what we're doing, describing the world. And yet he says we're not describing the world, it's all in an internal fantasy. It's not an internal fantasy, it's a description of the world. Pi exists in the world. The relationship between radiuses and circumferences exists in reality. Einstein's equation exists in reality. The fact of our evolution, the cause and effect reality of our existence, these are truths, these are descriptions of what's going on, and they have significance and impact and meaning and all of that crap. And this is just a way, again, of just somehow attempting to use nonsense verbiage to extract all value meaning from reality. And it's just bullshit. Come on, play the clip.
Then that's absurdity. There is no non-existence from which thou could have came. Thou only is. Right?
Yeah, well, like I said, he's blowing up the word prevention or cause. Like I said, he doesn't like cause and effect, apparently, because he's going to say that there are effects or consequences or realities that had no cause, that it just is. It isn't something you can understand the mechanism of its isness, the thing that ised it. And so because the thing that ised it is in some times has connected to it probabilities or possibilities, like the dice could have rolled a different way if they were rolled in a different universe, in a different permutations or circumstance. The fact that there is a theoretical multiple possibilities of an outcome, he's going to say that no, there's only is. There is no cause that got you to the is, and it's just bullshit. Whether we call the place that things come from nothing, or non-existence, or a realm of possibilities, the fact is, it is a realm. It is a place. There are possibilities in the sense that our vision cannot show us inevitability. It can only show us what we can see. You know, we can't see every bit of energy. So we certainly can't calculate its end product. It's like the weather. The weather has a variability to it. We see it as variable. We see it as different possibilities at any one moment, but we do understand that it's cause and effect, and we do understand that if you change the causes, you will change the effect. Jeez.
Right? Even the word became, right, is kind of weird because of where did I become from, right? It's more like I am. At one point, I started, right? Where did I start from? Even using the term started and coming and arriving, right? That's
yeah, these are just words that we use because they are convenient to our level of perception. But the point is that there was, yes, okay, there's only change, there's only transition, there's only migration, and so, but again, you can't deny the fact that the circumstance is cause and effect, and one change in the link, the chain of causes changes the effect. So if I have one thought, if I convey an idea to another person of a sense of responsibility, and now they are motivated by a sense of responsibility, and that becomes one of the gear works of their intelligence, then yes, their effects are now going to be different than they would have been if they did not have that as a mechanism in their causal chain. And so now they will affect the world differently because of that apprehension or sense of obligation to make a rational argument. Obviously, you don't have any sense of obligation to make rational arguments.
Pain is good, even if that good is not enjoyed by anyone. So here we have a ghostly, non-existent thing that I guess we're going to say exists, that is before the coming, right? That doesn't experience anything, any good, but that is good, even if the good is not enjoyed by anyone. Okay, even if this non-existent thing is not enjoying any non-existent pain, right? How is it applied to it, right? Even though it's not applied to it, that is good, right? Okay, so
yeah, so he's just making he's trying to again to defeat through a word game the concept that prevention is a good thing, and that when you prevent something from happening, it's the mechanism of prevention in the case of like preventing the birth of a horrifically deformed child, for example. You've prevented a harm, and you've prevented it on something that now will not exist because you prevented it. The very act of prevention, the very act of stopping its existence, stops its existence as something that will be. But the value of stopping its existence is a reality. It has real weight. It is not an insignificant, irrelevant, meaningless fact in the universe. It is in fact one of the most meaningful preventions. Just as it would be great if I could prevent, and go back in history and prevent the forming of the AIDS virus, or the mutation of the AIDS virus. There would be an obvious, let us just assume that there's no beneficial ununderstood benefit to all that pain and suffering that's been caused by AIDS. Yeah, I mean, it's just quite obvious that if I could go back in time and twist that little knob and stop the AIDS virus, there would be tremendous good. Now, there's no reality of the actual, what do we call that? The non-happening of the suffering of all the AIDS patients that do not suffer, and the whole change of the history, the whole change of the future. Obviously, the change that we moved when we migrated from one possibility to another possibility. Now, the one that doesn't exist anymore, the fact that it doesn't exist doesn't mean that it isn't a real thing, that it doesn't exist. The fact that it doesn't exist is the value, is the good. Even though it itself doesn't exist, it doesn't need to exist for it to be good that it doesn't exist. I mean, it does get convoluted, but I mean, we do understand that we understand the word prevention, so just stop with that word. Okay, it's a word that has value, and you again you're extracting another value word from the vocabulary that has meaning. I mean, every prevention is basically an argument about alternative universes, and okay, it's an argument about a comparison between a nothing and a something. The nothing being what would have been. I mean, what would have been is a real concept. It's not a fake concept.
Like Mormon philosophy, I know, has a pre-existence. Souls are existing prior to. So if Gary wants to be religious or derived energy, so be it. Otherwise, their very referent is simply a vernacular use of the term. Oh, I came into. Oh, I just arrived. I showed up. I was a twinkle in your mom and dad's eye, right?
Yeah, well, we know how we got here again. So again, he's just denying cause and effect. He's calling belief in cause and effect religion. So, I mean, if that isn't just troll behavior now, we have migrated to full mega troll. Because really, I mean, to get into arguments or having to defend the fact that there is no religiosity connected to the concept of cause and effect. It is not a religion, idiot.
Life is imposed upon me, or upon you, or upon sentient beings. No, once again, that would imply that there is a pre-existing thing, soul, if you will.
No, it simply implies that there are causes, and one of those causes is a thought in someone's head saying, leave us, let our biology produce a reproduction. Okay, leave us ignore the fact that it will likely consume through cannibalism more value than it produces in the world. Leave us not consider that truth and ignore it and act irresponsibly and stupidly and produce a copy. I mean, there is a cause to the effect. Shit.
Life is imposed upon me, or upon you, or upon sentient beings. No, once again, that would imply that there is a pre-existing thing, soul, if you will. If you're going to be religious, then I'll drop my argument. You just admit that you're religious and that you believe in a pre-existing thing from which a body or sentience can be imposed upon you, right?
So again, it's just this, it keeps coming up, like somehow to have a basic belief in a cause and effect universe means now you're religious. I mean, this is just so fucking idiotic. But anyway, next piece of crap. This one seems way too long.
If you're going to use that, then out of the gate you're religious. And if you want to say no, then I'll just say you're being vernacular. Okay, then you're just going to...
Yeah, well, whatever. I mean, who's getting vernacular? Again, you are getting vernacular in a preposterous sense. You're just annihilating language. You're just saying take all the value words out because I don't like them, because I don't like the judgment, I don't like the responsibility. I don't want the obligation of having to be reasonable and rational in the context of values, because it's inconvenient to me. I can't be a selfish pig if you're going to impose values on me. Fuck.
Use vernacular terms, right? But the mere fact is you are the body that is the condition of sentience that experiences and has pain and pleasure and feeling, right? These are components of your very definition.
Yeah, duh. Yeah, I don't know why. I'm just not going to play all of that. So, I mean, yeah, duh. We're pointless pointing out.
Start formulating a class action lawsuit against parents for murder and suffering and genocide right out of the gate.
Yeah, well, like I said, you can use that excessive language, or you could modify it to something like start a class action lawsuit in the context of laws that impose responsibility, and then that becomes quite reasonable. So if you have laws against drunk driving and there's some mechanism or organization that's facilitating a bunch of drunk drivers on the road, like a liquor company or some other kind of thing, and they actually have a car smashing, weaving down the road as their logo or something, so they encourage people to be drunk drivers in some way, then yeah, you could class action lawsuit them because they might have caused a substantial number of reckless homicides. So yeah, you can take the extreme once again. You can blow anything up if you take it to some preposterous extreme. I mean, I can't put my garbage out, right? If you make garbage cans as big as houses. Well, yeah, okay, that's right. Okay, yeah, garbage can't be picked up then. So, yeah, we can't have garbage pickup because you decided to screw with the language and make all garbage cans as big as a house. Even though we know garbage cans don't have to be as big as a house. So, yeah, use exaggeration to break things. Yeah, I mean, that's, it's such a childish piece of sloppy rhetoric. I mean, what, intelligent people are supposed to fall for that?
You don't have a death sentence. You are an organism that will die. You're not sentenced to death. As a matter of fact, as soon as you enter...
Again, there's a silly wordplay. The fact is, if it's a known implication, if it's a guaranteed implication of an act, there's nothing wrong with calling it a sentence. It is an absolute statement of what will be imposed. Period. And it is an imposition. When it's known, it's an imposition. When it's a known outcome, it's an imposition. And nobody can reasonably have a child thinking, my child is going to be immortal. No, we know that's not reasonable under the factual circumstances known to this moment. There is no reasonable prospect that your child will be immortal.
Pre-existing X that has a body and sentience imposed upon it and suffering that needs to be reduced. I'm sorry. I am sorry that you guys are too fucking obtuse to get it and metamorph.
Yeah, well, whatever. I'm mournful and grief-stricken that human beings are as dumb and as ignorant and as scheming and desperate. Yeah, desperate to defend what? What, you want mommy to hug you? Mommy didn't hug you enough or something? You just need to do more chasey, grab. Chasey, grab. You know, you gotta play tic-tac-toe one more time because you're so sick of losing that you got to prove that you can win the game. You can win the game. What are you, the little fat Volkswagen that could? I will be a Lamborghini. I will be a Lamborghini. Yes, I will be. No, you won't be. You're gonna fail like every other fucking failure of a human being, and it's a big giant pile of fucking waste. I mean, should I take this image and then maybe in 50 years we can superimpose it over an image of you in the fucking nursing home, drooling and saying, what's my name? Is my name retardo or stupid fuck? Or smelly fat guy? Yeah. I mean, fuck you and this bullshit. This fucking trite, silly talk about what life is. This is. I mean, Remy is correct. Why not just sing goddamn Lion King songs?
Oh, another guy using semantical hoops to get around the suffering.
You know, I think I've checked out. I don't even know if I've checked out.
Yeah, I don't know why it stopped there, but whatever. Yeah, well, again, you're just belittling and trivializing, which are real issues, which is that there is an ethical truth, there's value equations that are built out of this meaningful thing called suffering that you are trivializing. You're reducing it all to a stub toe because you have your morphine patch. I mean, it's just such bullshit to say you have an answer to other people's sensibilities, to their offense, to their profound and deeply felt aversion to even listening to you. You make people probably nauseous and desirous of a puke because you're so trivial and disgusting in the fact that you can't add up the simplest logical concepts. Evade you, and you have power. I mean, you're as frightening as you know, the worst kind of dictator or despot. But this is what runs the world, is morons like this. Yes, it's disgusting. It's revolting.
Language and logical language, and he bounces back and forth the two without knowing he's doing it. Right? He hasn't made a distinction between the two. He doesn't.
Yeah, why should I make a distinction? Words have meanings. I don't give a fuck about the games you want to play with them. All I have to do is know that a word has a definition. Generally speaking, I'll accept that we have a common understanding of the definition of the word, and then the word can be applied. Now, if we don't have a common understanding of the word, then it's going to like a word like objectivity or something, because of some whatever bitch who decided to name a philosophy after it. Yeah, so if a word has a corrupted or broken definition, then you're going to have to redefine it when you use it, or you're going to have to use some other declarative statement instead of the word itself. But yeah, that's all it is. It's just definitions. That's all words are. They're definitions. Words are definitions. And yes, I am putting a string of definitions together in a row that have a logical continuity. You, on the other hand, are extracting all use of this logical continuity by denying the most logically observable truth, which is the whole point of the game, the whole value, the whole structure of the game is built out of this welfare function created by feelings. And you're the one negating that most important of all facts in the universe. And so you're a stupid idiot, and I really dislike you. Profoundly. More profoundly every day. You stupid fuck. Well, he did a whole part where he mocked me, but I guess I missed that somewhere. You know, it's good. But yeah, this whole idea that he's going to ridicule other people's suffering because he is the master of the suffering. Yes. And it's just, I mean, that in itself is just, I mean, I think to most people that's got to be fairly obnoxious, because they know their pain and their loss and their grief in their life is real shit, and they wouldn't want somebody saying, get over it, fucker, get over it, fucker, get over it, fucker. I got over it, so you should get over it. I mean, that kind of talk is really quite obnoxious, quite insulting. And so, yes, it's dospook. Emphasis on the pook. Okay, so anyway, enough of the video. Till next time, and such.